The quantum communication array hummed with an intensity that made Dr. Elena Rodriguez's hair stand on end. Prototype sensors she'd spent years calibrating were picking up something extraordinary. Her fingers danced across holographic interfaces, tracing impossible signal patterns that defied everything she knew about interstellar communication. Outside the research facility's reinforced windows, the early morning California landscape remained unchanged. Fog rolled across Silicon Valley, obscuring the tech campuses and research centers that dotted the landscape. Inside the lab, however, everything was about to change. The transmission came without warning. One moment, the array was scanning background radiation. The next, a burst of quantum-encrypted data flooded the systems. Elena's augmented reality displays flickered, then stabilized, revealing a message that would alter human history forever. Attention, Earth civilization. The translation matrix began, its clinical tone sending a chill down Elena's spine. The Zoraxian hegemony has completed its comprehensive evaluation of your species. Your technological development, social structures, and planetary resources have been assessed. Surrender is the only logical outcome. Elena called her team immediately. Dr. Marcus Chen, the facility's lead xenolinguist, arrived within minutes. His eyes widened as he reviewed the transmission. "This is no standard communication," he muttered, fingers tracing the complex linguistic patterns. "They're not just demanding surrender. They're presenting it as a mathematical certainty." Meanwhile, across the country, Jake Martinez was live streaming his morning gaming session. A former stand-up comedian turned full-time content creator, Jake had built a massive online following with his quick wit and unpredictable humor. His audience of millions watched in real time as notifications about the alien transmission began flooding his chat. "Breaking news," Jake read aloud, his trademark smirk already forming. "Some space bureaucrats think they can tell humanity to pack it up and go home." He leaned closer to the camera, his performance instincts kicking in. "Guys, we're about to witness something epic." The transmission continued, detailing humanity's perceived inadequacies. The Zoraxian message was a clinical dismantling of human potential, a cold, logical explanation of why resistance was impossible. Each sentence was crafted to crush hope, to demonstrate the futility of human existence. But they didn't understand humans. As government channels began their measured diplomatic responses, the internet exploded. Memes appeared faster than official translations could be verified. Comedians began crafting jokes. Musicians started composing satirical songs. The global response was instantaneous and completely unexpected. Elena watched in amazement as her careful scientific analysis became secondary to humanity's most powerful weapon, collective creativity. The quantum array continued receiving the alien transmission, but something was happening. The complex encryption was struggling, overwhelmed by the sheer volume of human response. Jake's stream went viral. His initial comedic breakdown of the alien ultimatum was simultaneously broadcast on every major network. News stations cut between serious government briefings and his increasingly ridiculous interpretations of the alien threat. "Dear space overlords," Jake proclaimed, looking directly into the camera, "we, the people of Earth, have a simple response to your ultimatum." He paused, a comedic beat perfected through years of stand-up. Nah. The transmission that was meant to signal humanity's end had instead become the catalyst for something unprecedented. Humanity wasn't going to surrender. They were going to laugh in the face of cosmic annihilation. The global comedy offensive began in Tokyo, where the legendary comedy trio, Cosmic Punchline, took over the national broadcasting network. Dressed in outrageous costumes that blended traditional samurai armor with neon-colored comedy props, they began a live performance that would be remembered as the first true act of planetary defense. Hideo Tanaka, the group's lead comedian, stood center stage. His voice boomed through speakers worldwide. "Ladies and gentlemen of Earth, and our esteemed alien guests, we have a special presentation tonight." Behind him, massive screens displayed the Zoraxian transmission, which he began to systematically deconstruct with surgical comedic precision. In Rio de Janeiro, street performers transformed the city into a living, breathing mockumentary about the alien invasion. Massive puppets depicting bumbling alien bureaucrats danced through crowded streets. Children and adults alike joined the performance, turning fear into an art form of collective creativity. Dr. Aisha Kapoor watched from her Communication Research Center in Mumbai, fascinated by the emerging phenomenon. Her team of linguists and communication experts had discovered something extraordinary. The aliens' advanced translation matrices were becoming corrupted by the sheer volume and complexity of human humor. "It's like a linguistic immune system," she explained to her colleagues. "Each joke, each meme is essentially a form of communication warfare. We're not just responding to the transmission. We're actively dismantling their communication infrastructure." Global leadership found themselves in an unprecedented situation. Military strategists prepared traditional defense protocols, only to find them repeatedly undermined by the world's comedians and content creators. The United Nations emergency session devolved into a strategic comedy planning meeting, with representatives from every continent contributing their most potent forms of ridicule. In New York, a massive comedy telethon emerged overnight. Major comedians from around the world began a 24-hour broadcast that was part resistance, part global party. Trevor Noah, Ali Wong, Kevin Hart, and dozens of international comedians tag-teamed a performance that was simultaneously a planetary defense mechanism and the greatest comedy special in history. Social media became a battleground of creativity. Every attempt by the Zoraxian transmission to reassert its ultimatum was met with increasingly elaborate memes, jokes, and satirical content. Artificial intelligence systems began generating comedy at unprecedented rates, creating layers of humor so complex that even human analysts struggle to understand them. Jake Martinez, now considered an unexpected hero, coordinated with comedy collectives worldwide. His streaming platform became a central hub for the global comedy resistance. Comedians were no longer just entertainers, they were frontline defenders of planetary sovereignty. The psychological impact was immediate and profound. The Zoraxian leadership, designed for logical communication, found themselves completely unable to process humanity's response. Their communication systems, built on millions of years of interstellar diplomacy, began to break down when confronted with human creativity. Dr. Kapoor's team discovered that each joke was essentially a form of code. The complex cultural references, multilayered wordplay, and contextual humor were functioning as a type of communication that the aliens simply could not comprehend. It was as if humanity had discovered a universal language that transcended traditional understanding. "We're not just telling jokes," Dr. Kapoor explained in an emergency global broadcast. "We're creating a form of communication so advanced that it functions as a defensive mechanism. Our humor is our shield, our weapon, our very means of survival." As the day progressed, the world transformed. What had begun as a potential apocalyptic scenario had become a global celebration of human creativity. The Zoraxian transmission continued, but its power was diminishing with each passing moment, drowned out by the unstoppable wave of human laughter. The cosmic jesters emerged from the shadows of the internet like digital phantoms, a collective of the world's most brilliant hackers, programmers, and network engineers. They had been waiting for a challenge that would truly test the limits of human creativity. Their headquarters was a decentralized network spread across abandoned data centers, university research labs, and makeshift workshops in basements and garages worldwide. At the center of this digital rebellion was Aria Rodriguez, a 28-year-old cybersecurity prodigy who had spent years developing quantum encryption-breaking algorithms. "We're not just hacking," Aria explained to her core team during an encrypted video conference. "We're translating our entire cultural experience into a language the aliens can't comprehend." Her fingers danced across holographic interfaces, lines of code weaving intricate patterns that would make traditional programmers weep. The first major breakthrough came when they discovered a way to inject complex cultural references into the aliens' communication protocols. What began as simple signal jamming quickly evolved into an art form of technological mockery. Every time the Zoraxian fleet attempted to send a serious transmission, they found their messages replaced with increasingly elaborate forms of human expression. One particularly genius hack involved redirecting alien communication channels to stream an endless loop of internet memes. Classic rickrolls, cat videos, and absurdist comedy sketches became weapons of galactic communication. The Zoraxian encryption, designed to be impenetrable, crumbled under the weight of human creativity. In Silicon Valley, tech companies that had been rivals now worked in unprecedented collaboration. Apple, Google, Microsoft, and dozens of smaller tech firms pooled their resources. Their best minds were no longer focused on market competition, but on a singular goal: transforming human communication into an impenetrable shield. Dr. Marcus Chen from the initial research team discovered something extraordinary. The quantum communication array was picking up increasingly fragmented alien transmissions. Each attempt by the Zoraxians to reassert their ultimatum was being systematically dismantled by the Cosmic Jester's algorithms. "It's like we're teaching them a new language," Marcus explained during a global briefing. "But this language is composed of jokes, cultural references, and pure, unbridled human creativity. They simply cannot process it." The Hack Collective developed what they called cultural encryption, a method of embedding complex human experiences into communication protocols. A single meme could now contain layers of meaning that would take an alien civilization centuries to decode. Internet slang, pop culture references, and multilayered jokes became a form of advanced communication. Aria's team created an AI system they nicknamed Troll 9000, an algorithm designed to generate comedy so contextually complex that it functioned as a form of digital defense. It could generate millions of unique jokes per second, each one a potential weapon against the alien communication infrastructure. Global internet traffic transformed. What looked like normal content to human observers was actually a sophisticated communication network designed to confuse and overwhelm the alien transmission systems. Social media became a battleground, with every post, every share, every comment functioning as a potential defensive strategy. "We're not just resisting," Aria told her team during a rare moment of rest. "We're showing them the true power of human creativity, our ability to find humor in the face of absolute challenge. That's our real strength." As the Zoraxian fleet continued its approach, they found themselves drowning in an ocean of human communication. Each transmission they sent was immediately transformed, twisted, and returned as something completely unrecognizable. The technological guerrilla warfare had begun, and humanity was winning. The cultural counterattack transformed Earth into a living, breathing performance of resistance. In concert halls, symphonies were composed specifically to mock the alien ultimatum. The New York Philharmonic premiered Cosmic Bureaucracy, a piece that used musical dissonance to represent the aliens' logical communication, interspersed with wild, unpredictable jazz improvisations that symbolized human creativity. In Buenos Aires, street artist Marcos Ruiz led a team of muralists creating massive installations that turned the potential invasion into a planetary joke. Their artwork covered entire city blocks. Massive paintings that from ground level seemed chaotic, but from aerial view formed elaborate satirical portraits of alien leadership. Each brushstroke was a defiance, each color a statement of human spirit. The global film industry united in an unprecedented collaboration. Directors from Hollywood, Bollywood, Lagos, and Tokyo began producing real-time mockumentaries about the impending invasion. Documentaries were crafted with such intricate layers of irony that they functioned as both entertainment and a form of psychological warfare. Dr. Elena Rodriguez discovered that the artistic output was more than just a creative response. Her communication research team found that the complex cultural expressions were actively disrupting the alien transmission matrices. Music, art, comedy, they were becoming literal weapons of communication. "It's like we're speaking a language they can't translate," She explained during a global broadcast. Our art is a form of communication so complex, so multilayered, that it's incomprehensible to a purely logical system. In London's West End, a new play opened that became an overnight sensation. Intergalactic Paperwork was a 6-hour comedic marathon that meticulously detailed the bureaucratic nightmare of an alien invasion. Each night, the performance ended with the entire audience standing to deliver a unified, satirical response to the alien ultimatum. Musicians worldwide created an endless stream of invasion-themed music. Rap artists dropped tracks that turned the alien threat into a battle of cosmic proportions. Classical composers wrote intricate symphonies that encoded complex mathematical challenges within their musical structures. Every note was a challenge, every melody a form of resistance. The performance arts became a global defense mechanism. Dance troupes choreographed routines that represented humanity's adaptability. Each movement was a middle finger to the concept of logical surrender. In Beijing, a dance performance depicted the alien transmission being torn apart by human creativity, with dancers representing different cultural expressions breaking through rigid communication barriers. Social media platforms transformed into battlegrounds of creative expression. Every post, every shared piece of art, every comedic video became a weapon. Artificial intelligence systems worked overtime, generating content that pushed the boundaries of human creativity. Jake Martinez's streaming platform became the central hub of this cultural resistance. Comedians, musicians, artists, and performers from every corner of the globe used his platform to broadcast their most elaborate forms of mockery. The line between entertainment and planetary defense had completely blurred. The Zoraxian leadership watched in growing confusion. Their communication systems, designed to analyze and categorize, found themselves overwhelmed. How do you process a civilization that turns potential annihilation into a global performance art piece? Dr. Aisha Kapoor summed it up best during an emergency global conference. "We're not just defending ourselves," she explained. "We're demonstrating the most powerful attribute of human existence, our ability to find beauty, humor, and meaning in the face of absolute challenge." As the alien fleet continued its approach, Earth had transformed. No longer just a planet facing extinction, it had become a living, breathing performance of resistance, a testament to the power of human creativity. The first Zoraxian scout ships breached Earth's orbital zone with calculated precision. Massive vessels of impossible geometry hung against the backdrop of stars, their advanced sensors primed to analyze the planet they expected to conquer. Captain Zorax, a veteran of countless planetary submissions, prepared for what should have been a routine operation. Sensor arrays began scanning the planet's surface, expecting to detect signs of panic, military mobilization, or desperate diplomatic efforts. Instead, they found something completely incomprehensible. Global positioning systems showed massive gatherings that defied all logical assessment. In New York's Central Park, a million-person comedy festival was in full swing. Tokyo's streets had transformed into an elaborate performance art installation. Rio de Janeiro looked like one massive continuous carnival. Every major city was a hub of seemingly chaotic celebration. Scanning anomalies, the ship's primary communication officer reported, her voice tinged with confusion. "Cannot compute cultural response parameters." The broadcast networks they intercepted made no sense. Comedy shows were being transmitted on what should have been emergency channels. Musicians performed elaborate shows that seemed to be both a celebration and a form of communication. Military frequencies were filled with stand-up comedy routines instead of defensive strategies. In the command vessel, senior strategists reviewed the incoming data. Their advanced algorithms, designed to predict and categorize planetary responses, began to malfunction. How do you analyze a civilization that responds to an existential threat with collective laughter? Dr. Elena Rodriguez watched from a specially designed observation center in the California desert. Her team had been preparing for this moment, studying the potential first contact scenarios for years. Nothing in their extensive research had prepared them for this. "They're not just resisting," She muttered into her communication device. They're turning the entire invasion into a global performance. The Scout fleet's communication systems began to experience unprecedented interference. What should have been clear, logical transmissions became increasingly garbled. Memes, internet jokes, and satirical content began to infiltrate their most secure communication channels. Jake Martinez, now considered a global strategic asset, coordinated the planetary response from a makeshift studio that had become a global communication hub. His streaming platform had evolved into something between a comedy show and a planetary defense mechanism. Ladies and gentlemen, Jake announced to a global audience of billions, we have some unexpected guests. And boy, do we have a welcome prepared for them. The Zoraxian ships found themselves surrounded by a phenomenon they could not comprehend. Satellites redirected their signals, turning serious military communications into elaborate comedy broadcasts. Every attempt to establish a serious communication channel was met with increasingly complex forms of human creativity. Military strategists from around the world have become unexpected comedy coordinators. What began as a potential global crisis had transformed into a planetary performance art piece. Air Force pilots performed elaborate aerial comedy routines. Naval vessels created floating comedy festivals. Captain Zorax watched in growing bewilderment as their carefully planned invasion scenario completely fell apart. The human response defied every known protocol of planetary submission. They were not fighting. They were not running. They were laughing. Recommendation: the ship's primary strategist reported insufficient data to proceed with standard invasion protocols. As the Scout fleet hung in orbit, Earth continued its unprecedented response. A global civilization had turned a potential apocalypse into the most elaborate comedy special in galactic history. The Zoraxian communication systems began to collapse in ways their designers could never have anticipated. What had started as a simple planetary invasion was now a full-scale technological and psychological breakdown. Dr. Aisha Kapoor watched the phenomenon unfold from her research center in Mumbai, her team of linguists and communication experts working around the clock. It's a complete systemic failure, she explained to her colleagues. Their entire communication infrastructure is being dismantled by something they cannot comprehend: human creativity. The alien leadership, a collective of logical beings who had conquered hundreds of civilizations, found themselves facing an unprecedented challenge. Their communication protocols, built on millions of years of interstellar diplomacy, were falling apart under the weight of human humor and cultural complexity. Aria Rodriguez and the Cosmic Jesters had moved into a new phase of their digital warfare. They had developed an AI system that could generate comedy so contextually complex that it functioned as a form of digital poison. Each transmission sent to the alien fleet was a multilayered joke that required an understanding of human culture so deep that it would take centuries to decode. "We're not just sending messages," Aria explained during a rare interview. "We're sending entire cultural ecosystems encoded as comedy." The alien fleet's psychological warfare units began to malfunction. Their standard protocols for analyzing and breaking down planetary resistance were completely ineffective. Every time they attempted to send a serious transmission, it was immediately transformed into something unrecognizable. Global comedy collectives worked in unprecedented coordination. Comedians from every continent began creating a continuous stream of content specifically designed to confuse and overwhelm the alien communication systems. It was a form of warfare unlike anything in galactic history. Jake Martinez's streaming platform had become the central hub of this planetary defense. What looked like a comedy show to casual observers was actually a sophisticated communication network. Each joke, each meme, each comedic performance was a carefully crafted piece of resistance. The Zoraxian leadership held emergency sessions that devolved into confusion. Their most advanced translation matrices could not process the complexity of human humor. Cultural references, multilayered wordplay, and contextual jokes were functioning as a type of communication that simply did not compute. "We are facing a species that has weaponized incomprehensibility," The lead Zoraxian strategist reported, their voice tinged with a sound closest to what humans would recognize as frustration. Scientific research centers around the world discovered something extraordinary. The constant stream of human creativity was actually causing physical changes in the alien communication infrastructure. Their quantum communication networks were being slowly rewritten by the sheer volume of human expression. Dr. Elena Rodriguez's team found that each joke was essentially a form of code. The complex cultural references were functioning as a type of linguistic virus, slowly dismantling the aliens' ability to communicate effectively. "We're not just telling jokes," she explained in a global broadcast. "We're rewriting the fundamental language of interstellar communication." The alien fleet found itself drowning in an ocean of human creativity. Military transmissions were replaced with comedy sketches. Serious communication channels became conduits of memes and satirical content. Their most secure encryption was being systematically dismantled by the collective creativity of a planet they had underestimated. As the Zoraxian leadership tried to reassert control, they realized a terrifying truth. Humanity had discovered a form of communication so advanced, so complex, that traditional concepts of warfare were becoming obsolete. They were not just resisting. They were redefining the very nature of interstellar communication. The final confrontation began with a global broadcast that would be remembered as the most audacious performance in human history. From a massive stadium in Rio de Janeiro, the world's most brilliant comedians, artists, musicians, and performers gathered for what would become known as the Cosmic Roast. Jake Martinez stood at the center of the stage, surrounded by a diverse group of performers from every corner of the globe. Behind him, massive screens displayed the approaching alien fleet, their impossible geometries hanging in the sky like dark, menacing sculptures. "Ladies and gentlemen of Earth," Jake began, his voice carrying across continents, "and our esteemed galactic visitors. We have a special presentation tonight." The performance was a masterpiece of collective creativity. Comedians delivered multi-layered jokes that functioned as complex communication systems. Musicians created symphonies that encoded mathematical challenges. Dancers performed routines that were simultaneously artistic expressions and strategic communications. Dr. Aisha Kapoor watched from the Communication Research Center, her team tracking the broadcast's impact on the alien communication infrastructure. "It's more than a performance," she explained to her colleagues. "It's a complete deconstruction of their communication protocols." Each moment of the broadcast was carefully designed. A comedian from Mumbai would deliver a joke so culturally specific that it would require years of study to fully comprehend. Immediately following, a classical musician from Vienna would perform a piece that embedded complex mathematical theorems into its musical structure. The alien fleet found itself completely overwhelmed. Their communication systems, designed to analyze and categorize, began to break down under the weight of human creativity. What looked like a simple performance was actually a sophisticated attack on their entire technological infrastructure. Aria Rodriguez and the Cosmic Jesters worked behind the scenes, injecting additional layers of digital complexity into the broadcast. Each transmission was a weapon, each moment of comedy a strategic strike against the alien communication networks. Global leaders who had previously been preparing traditional defensive strategies now understood the true nature of human resistance. This was not a military confrontation. It was a battle of creativity, of cultural expression, of the fundamental human ability to find humor in the face of absolute challenge. The performance continued for hours. Comedians from every continent took the stage, each bringing their unique cultural perspective. A stand-up routine from Seoul would seamlessly transition into a jazz performance from New Orleans. A classical Indian dance would give way to a hip-hop performance from Lagos. Captain Zorax and the alien leadership watched in growing confusion. Their most advanced analysis systems were completely overwhelmed. How do you process a civilization that turns potential annihilation into the most elaborate comedy special in galactic history? Jake Martinez delivered the final monologue, a performance that would be studied for generations. "To our galactic visitors," he said, his voice carrying a mixture of humor and profound defiance, We have a simple message. Humanity is not just a species. We are a living, breathing performance of creativity, resilience, and absolutely unbreakable spirit. As the broadcast reached its climax, something extraordinary happened. The alien fleet's communication systems began to fragment. Their quantum communication networks, so advanced they had conquered hundreds of civilizations, were being systematically dismantled by the sheer complexity of human expression. The final moment of the broadcast saw every performer on stage simultaneously delivering a joke, a musical note, a dance move that was both a celebration and a declaration. Humanity had not just resisted. They had redefined the very nature of interstellar communication. The moment of absolute triumph came not with a traditional display of military might, but with a silence more powerful than any weapon. As the global broadcast concluded, the Xeraxian fleet hung motionless in Earth's orbit, a collective of advanced beings completely defeated by something they could not comprehend. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood in the observation center, watching the alien vessels slowly begin their retreat. Her team of communication experts had witnessed something unprecedented in human history. They had not just defended their planet, they had fundamentally altered the concept of interstellar communication. It was never about fighting, Elena explained to her colleagues. It was about showing them the true nature of human existence. Jake Martinez, now considered a global hero, began streaming the fleet's retreat. His commentary was a mixture of comedy and profound observation. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced, "we just told the most advanced civilization in the galaxy to take a joke. And they couldn't." The global response was unlike any previous moment in human history. Instead of celebration with traditional fireworks or military parades, cities around the world erupted in comedy festivals. Streets filled with performers, musicians, artists, each performance a continued act of defiance and creativity. Aria Rodriguez and the Cosmic Jesters had transformed from a hacking collective to legendary defenders of human creativity. Their AI systems continued to analyze the breakdown of alien communication protocols, creating a comprehensive study of how humor could function as a form of advanced communication. Dr. Aisha Kapoor's research team began compiling what would become the most important communication study in human history. Their findings suggested that human creativity was not just a defensive mechanism. It was a form of intelligence that transcended traditional logical understanding. The alien retreat became a moment of global unity. Countries that had previously been in conflict found themselves united by the collective experience. The performance had been more than a defense. It was a statement about the human spirit. "We didn't win through technology," global leaders explained in subsequent discussions. "We won through our ability to find humor, to create, to transform potential destruction into an opportunity for expression." Scientific research centers around the world began studying the communication techniques that had defeated the most advanced civilization in the galaxy. Universities created entire departments dedicated to understanding how humor could function as a form of advanced communication. Jake Martinez's streaming platform became a global archive of the resistance. Every moment of the planetary performance was preserved, studied, celebrated. Schools began teaching the cosmic roast as a pivotal moment in human history. The Xeraxian hegemony became a cautionary tale in their own civilization. Reports filtered back about the planet that had defeated them not through traditional warfare, but through an incomprehensible display of creativity and humor. Aria Rodriguez gave a final interview that captured the essence of the resistance. "We didn't just defend our planet," she explained. "We showed the universe the true power of human creativity. Our ability to find humor in the face of absolute challenge. That's our real strength." As decades passed, the story of Earth's resistance became legendary. When alien civilizations spoke of humans, they did not discuss military might or technological achievement. They spoke in hushed, confused tones about the species that laughed in the face of cosmic annihilation. And won. The ultimate weapon was not found in advanced technology or military strategy. It was the uniquely human ability to transform fear into laughter, destruction into creativity, and an alien ultimatum into the greatest comedy special in galactic history.